Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Let's just jump right in with something kind of stark. For a lot of us, American democracy feels, well, pretty fragile right now.
Mm.
And maybe the biggest reason isn't some external threat, but something internal. Like, we've stopped doing the basic work of trying to change each other's minds.
Yeah, absolutely. And that refusal, that's really the heart of what journalist Anand Giridharadas explores in his book, The Persuaders. At the front lines of the fight for hearts, minds, and democracy. It's a political analysis, came out October 18th, 2022. And if you want to check it out, we've put a link in the description for you.
So our mission today is basically to unpack this central idea from the book.
Mhm.
If you want big structural change, you kind of have to get good at persuasion again. Giridharadas profiles all these different people, activists, leaders who are actively fighting against what he terms the culture of the write-off.
That's such a key phrase, the culture of the write-off.
Totally. It's this habit we have of just dismissing anyone who disagrees with us as, like, unchangeable, hopeless. And his point is that's a dead end, especially if you're trying to build, a majority movement.
Exactly. And the book does offer this toolkit, right? Full of actual concrete strategies, things backed by evidence, like deep canvassing. We'll definitely get into that, but it's not all rosy.
No, definitely not.
The book acknowledges the pushback. Reviewers pointed out this potential blind spot. Like, is persuasion just a tool for progressives to win? Or should it be more of a two-way street, a mutual search for understanding, even if it's messy?
That's a huge tension, isn't it? Winning versus discovering something together. And there's another critique in there, too, aimed at progressive movements themselves, sometimes getting caught up in, like, ideological purity tests instead of building broader coalitions.
Right. And to really get why this feels so urgent in the book, you have to remember the context. 2022, polarization felt, extreme. There was that Gallup poll around then, said something like 80% of Americans felt the country was greatly divided on the most important values. Just dismissing the other side became normal.
Yeah, the default setting. And Giridharadas makes this really bold connection, linking that internal gridlock to, like, global threats. He basically says this culture of the write-off isn't just bad strategy, it's a vulnerability. He argues that foreign adversaries, he specifically mentions Russia's IRA, actually target this weakness. They want us to give up on persuading each other.
Because that fosters democratic fatalism.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. A belief that nothing can change, that the system is broken beyond repair. So they amplify the divisions, exploit our unwillingness to engage. It makes persuasion feel less like a nice to have and more like a necessary defense mechanism for democracy itself.
It totally reframes it. Suddenly, trying to have that difficult conversation with your neighbor isn't just, being nice. It's strategic. It's pushback against that fatalism.
Which leads right back to that internal critique of activism you mentioned. The book kind of wades into those debates, suggesting some movements can become too insular, spending more energy, as he puts it, on enforcing ideological purity and keeping people out than pulling people in. And you just can't build a winning coalition that way.
Right. So if we agree that just writing people off is a problem and persuasion is key, what does that actually look like? What's in this toolkit Giridharadas talks about?
Okay, let's dig in. First up is maybe the most intensive one, deep canvassing. This isn't your typical clipboard canvassing. It's about having long, empathetic conversations, door to door, often non-judgmental. Canvassers share their own stories, connect on a human level about really tough issues like trans rights or immigration.
And the results they've seen are, well, pretty remarkable. There are actual studies validating this. They found that just one conversation, maybe 10, 20 minutes long, can create lasting shifts in people's views. The numbers are something like, you can genuinely move about 8 people for every 100 conversations on really deeply held beliefs.
8 out of 100. That sounds surprisingly effective, actually. But my first thought is, wow, that sounds incredibly slow. I mean, face-to-face, one conversation at a time. How does that possibly scale up against, the fire hose of online polarization happening 2047?
That's the tension, isn't it? Depth versus scale. But I think the argument in the book is that maybe the obsession with speed and scale is part of the problem. Maybe the antidote to fast, shallow disinformation is actually slow, deep human connection. Which kind of leads into the next strategy.
Okay.
Inoculation theory. This comes from cognitive science, people like John Cook. The idea is you can't possibly fact-check every lie that pops up online. It's impossible.
Right, whack-a-mole.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
instead, you inoculate people, like a vaccine. You teach them to recognize the tactics manipulators use.
Ah, okay. So not debunking the specific lie, but showing them how the lie is constructed, like spotting fake experts or logical fallacies.
Precisely. You teach them the playbook of disinformation. And the appeal here is interesting. It's not really about left versus right ideology. It taps into something more universal. People don't like being tricked. They don't want to be conned. So you're appealing to their intelligence, their skepticism.
I like that. Okay, what's next? You mentioned messaging.
Right, strategic messaging. This section features Anat Shenker-Osorio's work. She studies how to reach the persuadable middle. And her big insight is that this middle isn't really ideologically moderate. It's not about being centrist.
So who are they then?
She calls them persuadables, people kind of holding contradictory ideas at the same time. They're in a suspended state of mixed opinions, is how Giridharadas puts it. And the key finding, watering down your message to try and meet them in some imaginary center, that actually doesn't work.
Really? That seems counterintuitive.
Yeah. But her research suggests what works is bold, clear messaging. State your values, name the problem, offer the solution, be authentic, and that clarity, that boldness, it energizes your base, and they become the ones who persuade the middle. It's about activating your supporters to do the persuading.
Okay, animating the base to persuade the middle. Got it. And the last strategy.
This one's more interpersonal. Calling in, championed by activist Loretta Ross. It's about holding people accountable for harmful stuff they say or do, but doing it with love, as Ross puts it. The aim is growth. Repair, not just public shaming or exile, which is often what calling out can feel like.
So it's accountability, but with a path back, a way to learn and rejoin the conversation.
Exactly. And this whole idea of engaging, even when it's hard, even when it requires vulnerability, it connects to leadership too. The book kind of contrasts Bernie Sanders' strong focus on structural issues with someone like AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
How so?
Well, AOC uses what they call an inside-outside game. She talks structure, absolutely, but she also uses her personal story, her vulnerability to make those big ideas feel relatable. She kind of drops the armor. And the book suggests that vulnerability, that willingness to connect personally, is something all these effective persuaders share.
Dropping the armor. That feels like a big theme. Okay, so we've got this toolkit, these examples, but it's not simple. The book forces you to wrestle with some tough questions, right?
Oh, definitely. Big ethical and strategic dilemmas. The first one that jumps out is the burden of emotional labor. Think about who is doing the hardest work here. The deep canvassers, the people practicing calling in. Often the book shows it's women, people of color, activists from marginalized groups.
Right. They're the ones spending enormous energy educating, persuading, often dealing with hostility, trying to bridge these divides. And the question is that fair? Is it sustainable? Should the burden fall so heavily on those already marginalized? Or should the onus be more on privileged folks to do their own learning?
It's a critical question, and there's no easy answer. The second big dilemma is more strategic, the problem of the unreachable. Giridharadas focuses a lot on persuading the persuadable middle, makes sense. But Loretta Ross's framework, the calling in person, she also acknowledges there are what she calls 0%.
0%ers, meaning?
Meaning people you likely can't persuade. Think like committed fascists, people acting in deliberate bad faith, those actively working against democracy. Ross argues these actors need to be overpowered, organizationally and politically, not persuaded. So that raises a really important boundary question. When do you stop trying to persuade? When does it become pointless or even harmful, and you just need to focus on mobilizing your side to win?
Wow. Okay, knowing where that line is, that seems absolutely crucial. Deciding when to drop the armor and reach out versus when to recognize an opponent that just needs to be defeated.
That's the tightrope, right? That's the core tension activists and leaders are navigating every day.
Yeah. So this deep dive really highlights that complexity. It's not just about whether to persuade, but how, when, and who bears the burden. Which brings us to some questions for you, our listeners, to chew on, based on everything we've just talked about. First, the book pushes back hard against a culture of the write-off. But is there a point where trying to persuade someone really is a waste of time, maybe even counterproductive? How can you tell the difference between someone who might be persuaded and someone just arguing in bad faith? Second, we talked about the toolkit deep canvassing, inoculation theory, AOC's approach, calling in. In the political climate we have right now today, which of those strategies feels like it has the most potential to actually create lasting change? Third, that emotional labor point. Many of the heroes in the book are from marginalized communities doing this incredibly draining work. Is it fundamentally their responsibility? Or should people with more privilege be stepping up more to educate themselves and their own communities? Fourth, the book critiques progressive movements for sometimes focusing too much on ideological purity, on calling out potential allies.
Do you see that happening? How does a movement for justice find that balance between holding people accountable and still being welcoming enough to grow? And finally, maybe the biggest question. Thinking about these persuaders and their work, does it make you feel more hopeful about the future of American democracy? Or maybe more pessimistic? Does Giridharadas' core argument still feel relevant today?
Those are definitely the big takeaways to wrestle with. Ultimately, the book argues polarization isn't inevitable. It's a strategic challenge. There are tools, there are approaches, but they come with real ethical weight. This conversation, it's really just scratching the surface. The book itself goes into much more detail, lots of fascinating stories and case studies. Definitely worth a read if this sparked your interest.
Absolutely. We really hope this gave you some food for thought. We'd love to hear what resonated with you, maybe a specific strategy or one of those dilemma questions. Let us know in the comments what stood out. And of course, if you found this valuable, please like, subscribe, and feel free to share this deep dive with anyone you think might find it interesting.
Thanks for tuning in.
I'll catch you on the next one.